Hello everyone, welcome to the Unglobalist, Wednesday, February 20th. And this is the news in 2019. And in United States news, Trump says that he wants to end persecution of LGBTs worldwide. Now let me give you a quick anecdote, and this is an anecdote, but this is something I have personally come to know, is that these people who believe that it's wrong, immoral, and degenerate to be LGBT, they're literally married to this belief. It is a fundamental aspect of their worldview. You will literally have to kill them to prevent them from discriminating against LGBTs. Kill them or suppress their speech, neither which I'd be in support of. Bottom line is, you'll never completely eliminate the discrimination. You're just going to have to live with it. And punish a crime if it does ever happen. But thought policing and life policing are simply not okay. But believe me, I've seen shit that I know that these people are literally dedicated to these beliefs. You would literally have to kill them. But regardless, NBC News reports U.S. Ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, the highest profile openly gay person in the Trump administration, is leading the effort, which kicks off Tuesday evening in Berlin. The United States Embassy is flying in LGBT activists from across Europe for a strategy dinner to plan to push for decriminalization in places that still outlaw homosexuality, most concentrated in the Middle East, Africa, and in the Caribbean. It is concerning that in the 21st century some countries continue to have laws that criminalize LGBTI status or conduct, said a U.S. official involved in organizing the event. It seems that the people involved are going the diplomatic route and will involve the EU, UN, and other such global organizations to have talks and push the idea. This comes as anti-LGBT hate crime rates are seeing an increase. Just recently, a young gay man was hung in Iran. Trump's envoy to Germany, Grenell, has spoken out against Iran and has pressed European countries to abandon the controversial Iran deal and instead embrace the use of sanctions. Sanctions make it difficult for a country to manage a sustainable economy. In short, you don't just punish a government, you punish a people. Stop abusing gays, or your people don't get to eat, in essence. And literally, it puts pressure on the country's economy. So imagine a friggin' sanction getting in the way of you being able to buy a loaf of bread, and you weren't even responsible for the thing your country's being punished for. That in itself is a form of abuse. There's got to be a better way than sanctions. There has to be. But reframing the conversation on Iran around a human rights issue that enjoys broad support in Europe could help the United States and Europe reach a point of agreement on Iran. Grenell called the hanging a wake-up call for everyone who supports basic human rights. In Bild, a leading German newspaper this month, this is not the first time the Iranian regime has put a gay man to death, with the usual outrageous claims of prostitution, kidnapping, or even pedophilia. And it sadly won't be the last time, Grenell wrote. Barbaric public executions are all too common in a country where consensual homosexual relationships are criminalized and punishable by flogging and death. He added that politicians, the UN, democratic governments, diplomats, and good people everywhere should speak up and loudly. In Saudi Arabia, whose monarchy Trump has staunchly defended in the face of human rights allegations, homosexuality can be punishable by death, according to a 2017 worldwide report from the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans, and Intersex Association, or ILGA. The report identified 72 nations that still criminalize homosexuality, including 8 where it's punishable by death. The list includes the United Arab Emirates, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. All U.S. allies, although those countries aren't known to have implemented the death penalty for same-sex acts. In Egypt, whose leader Trump has effusively praised, homosexual relations aren't technically legal, but other morality laws are used aggressively to target LGBT people. This is interesting to me, due to Trump's mixed record with LGBT support, essentially walking back a lot of workplace and legal protections put in place by Obama. Also keep in mind that Mike Pompeo is involved. And he's a straight-up warmonger who supports wars in the Middle East. Like, Pompeo's classic. He's a modern-day Patton in a lot of ways, and he's frequently got the president's ears, always, you know, sort of, you know, he's one of Trump's closest advisors. He's always got his ear, always feeding him ideas, no doubt. I mean, that's just my opinion of the man, but Pompeo does seem like a straight-up warmonger to me. So this is interesting. Despite the dozens of countries that still outlaw homosexuality, LGBT rights have proliferated in recent years. In many parts of the world, 24 countries now recognize same-sex marriage, according to the ILGA report. While another 28 recognize domestic partnerships, the last U.S. laws outlawing same-sex activity were invalidated by the Supreme Court in 2003 in Lawrence v. Texas. Grenell, in his editorial in Build, pointed out that India, Belize, Angola, and Trinidad and Tobago recently decriminalized same-sex conduct among consenting adults, but he said reasonable people must keep speaking out about laws in other places, including Iran and Chechnya, the Russian region where authorities have cracked down violently on gay people in recent years. While a student at Evangel University, a Christian liberal arts college in Missouri, I was taught by biblical scholars that all truth is God's truth, no matter where it is found. The truth of LGBT people is that we were born gay, Grenell wrote. People can disagree philosophically about homosexuality, but no person should ever be subject to criminal penalties because they are gay. Absolutely true. But it's not acceptable to see sanctions that ultimately punish people who weren't even involved, nor is it correct to have thought policing or life policing. As far as the Trump walking back the Obama are concerned, it seems as if Trump does have any concern for LGBT rights at all. It's not expressed in a way that most politicians would typically express it. It's almost conceivable he might believe in a more social solution, as do I. It's not something that needs to be legislated. It needs to be something that is seen to by the people, not the government. Moving on. A supposed alliance between Iran and Al-Qaeda is being purported, even though Iran is Shia and Al-Qaeda is Suni, denominations of Islam that are natural enemies, and yet somehow there's an alliance. Interesting. And the fact of the matter is, many of Al-Qaeda fighters were actually taken by Iran as prisoners, not being given sanctuary, as some claimed. This seems suspicious to me, that maybe far-right warmongers might be at it again, like the race-religion baiting they did post 9/11. This could be a simple rinse and repeat. But according to a right-wing article found at www.unitedagainstnucleariran.com, Iran has collaborated with Al-Qaeda covertly and often by proxy due to the latter's notorious reputation. This covert cooperation beginning in the early 1990s in Sudan continued after Al-Qaeda relocated to Afghanistan and even manifested itself on Iranian soil before, during, and after the September 11 attacks. Although such cooperation has been known by authorities for the first time in July 2011, the U.S. formally accused Iran of forging an alliance with Al-Qaeda. That includes harboring Al-Qaeda operatives on Iranian territory and helping Al-Qaeda transit money, weapons, and fighters. This alliance against America between the world's leading state-sponsored terrorism and the most infamous international terrorist group is a formidable and menacing threat to American interests. This report documents the development of the Iran-Al-Qaeda alliance from the early 1990s to the present day. It seems so very unlikely to me. It's certainly illogical that two denominations of a notably violent religion, denominations that are supposed to hate each other, suddenly working together? This sounds a lot like the typical sort of excuses they used to make when I was a kid in high and middle school, if you recall. But the article goes on. The 9/11 Commission report has a section devoted exclusively towards investigating Iranian ties to Al-Qaeda, entitled Assistance from Hezbollah and Iran and Al-Qaeda. The report states that shortly after these meetings in Sudan in late 1991 or 1992, senior Al-Qaeda operatives and trainers traveled to Iran to receive training in explosives in the fall of 1993, Another such delegation went to the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon for further training in explosives as well as intelligence and security. Bin Laden reportedly showed particular interest in learning how to use truck bombs, such as the one that had killed 241 U.S. Marines in Lebanon in 1983. The relationship between al-Qaeda and Iran demonstrated that Sunni-Shia divisions did not necessarily pose an insurmountable barrier to cooperation in terrorist operations. Hezbollah, founded in 1982 at the behest of the IRGC, has acted as a key intermediary between Iran and al-Qaeda. Hezbollah, founded in 1982 at the behest of the IRGC, has acted as a key intermediary between Iran and al-Qaeda. Iran and Hezbollah function in a patron-client relationship. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, supported Hezbollah operationally and financially amidst the turmoil of the Lebanese Civil War in the early 1980s, enabling it to develop into a deadly and proficient organization. Creating and maintaining Hezbollah was not only useful to export the Islamic Republic's revolutionary ideology, it also provided Iran a convenient terrorist proxy through which Iran could operate with impunity. Iran was therefore able to limit the risks of cooperating with al-Qaeda directly by engaging al-Qaeda through Hezbollah. After the Khartoum meeting with Sheikh Nomani, Iran consulted Hezbollah, and al-Qaeda was invited to send a contingent to Lebanon. Not only did al-Qaeda come out of Lebanon with training and propaganda videos, but also received a large amount of explosives from Iran that were used in the bombing of East African targets. Additionally, it was Imad Mughniya, Hezbollah's notorious terrorist mastermind responsible for the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing, who inspired Osama to develop coordinated simultaneous attacks as a regular modus operandi, and this has been the hallmark of most subsequent al-Qaeda operations. Moreover, both Hezbollah trainers and experts from Iran's Ministry of Information Security trained al-Qaeda fighters in Sudan and existing al-Qaeda facilities, Lebanon and Hezbollah camps in Iran, and officially run bases. See, the thing is, even if it is true, how are they a threat to America? Alright? Supposedly the most powerful nation in the world. Right? So how are they a threat? And besides, it's really none of our business now, is it? True or false, it's just another excuse by men like Mike Pompeo and others like him to justify more endless wars. If it is a lie, then it has with the data considered, it is most likely the type of lie that has been wrapped up in a little bit of truth to make it more palatable, to sell it, to make it convincing. That is how you sell a lie. You wrap it up in the truth. You strip the truth of its clothing, of its identity, and you give it to untruth, and then you parade it around, saying that it is the truth, even when it's not. That is the simple fact of it. That is the simple fact of it. Bottom line is, if it is true, they are no threat to America, and if it is not true, then this is a straight-up lie designed to excuse yet another immoral war of convenience for the acquiring of foreign oil from nations that do not want to cooperate with our industry. That's all it is. That's the position I will take on this. If you don't want them to hurt our soldiers, fine, then bring them home. They can't hurt them if they're here. This country is a fucking fortress. What hope do they honestly have? Since Jesse Smollett's MAGA attack has been confirmed fake, Empire has fired him from its cast. This case is going into grand jury on Tuesday. He in fact paid two Nigerian brothers $4,000 to fake the assault and fake even hate mail. On Friday, January 18th, the letter was sent addressed to Jesse Smollett. In Science Space Studios, MAGA was sloppily written in the return address space. CWBChicago.com reports 4 days later and about 11 miles away, the letter found its way to Smollett. Something about the envelope must have raised concerns. Smollett would later tell the police that he and Empire's executive producer donned gloves before they opened it and exposed themselves to a threat letter covered in white powder. Police logged the time as 2:30 p.m. The powder was later determined to be crushed Tylenol, according to reports, but the letter addressed to Smollett depicted a curly-haired stick figure being hanged by another stick figure with a noose, using individual letters and words that appeared to be clipped from magazines. The sender threatened Smollett with an anti-black, anti-gay message, "You will die, black fag." So, not only are you using this to smear Trump supporters as evil, race, gay-hating people, but also as idiots who can't draw and crush up Tylenol just to give you a little scare? About a week later, the attack took place. No doubt Jesse Smollett's plan was to smear Trump supporters. This is, I would say he's a leftist with a case of Trump derangement syndrome, which I mean, I'm not a professional psychologist, but I know the definition of a syndrome. And the way these people act is not rational. It looks like a syndrome, like a real syndrome. What started out as a joke may in fact be a real thing. Well, as I said, a leftist with a case of Trump derangement syndrome. Jesse Smollett strikes me as yet another liberal anti-Trump celebrity, possibly with the agenda of using this crap to further his career. Because he's a minor celebrity on a show that is fast growing. His career is still fresh, and he has to go and ruin it like this. Why couldn't you just make your career the right way, dude? Why couldn't you just make an honest living? Why is that so hard? The article read that the evidence presented could lead to a felony indictment against Jesse Smollett for filing a false police report. Jesse Smollett could face up to 3 years in prison for filing a false police report in the state of Illinois, a Class 4 felony. And for those of you who think the attack was real, then why is he being indicted? Because an indictment is a lot more than a simple accusation. An indictment indicates the presence of evidence. Moving on. An illegal immigrant arrested and accused of raping a 15-year-old girl. The article reads, according to Sheriff's Department officials, the investigation showed a 15-year-old female that had been sexually assaulted between March and May of 2016 in McCracken County. On 3 different occasions by Andres Villarreal Marquedo, he is facing 3 counts of rape, first degree. This was reported in KFVS. According to BigLeaguePolitics.com, on February 10th, the Sheriff's Office of McCracken County led an investigation into 3 rape reports concerning the man, Villarreal Marquedo, who they had arrested 5 days later without incident. They confirmed that he was in the United States illegally. Villarreal Marquedo is reportedly being held in the McCracken County Jail on a $100,000 bail. On a side note, Trump has officially declared his state of emergency over border security and will now be taking $8 billion from the Department of Defense, with 16 states suing the decision. Suing the Trump administration, and the decision will be taken into court soon. Truth is, if you believe that the Democrats aren't letting immigrants make it in illegally on purpose to vote for them, then ask yourself this. Why are their border security measures so weak? Simple answer, plausible deniability. To get away with it. The immigrants come in and they vote left. It's a fact. I've already reported on and have shown the evidence that thousands and thousands of illegal migrants come over the border and almost immediately get registered to vote. It's a favor for a favor. Democrats help them get across the border, and in return they give them votes. The system works. When you're dirty as hell. Voter ID needs to be mandatory and universal, plain and simple. Hopefully established without violating states' rights. And we need that damn wall. We just need it. That's all there is to it. We need to stop this kind of shit. We need to stop human trafficking. We need to stop all of it. CBS News chief admits that most journalists are Democratic activists. ZeroHedge.com got the scoop. Laura Logan officially blew the whistle, declaring that she was committing career suicide by telling the truth on the Mic Drop, a podcast. In the Zero Hedge coverage, she is quoted as saying, 85% of journalists are registered Democrats. Logan said, how do you know you're being lied to? How do you know you're being manipulated? How do you know there's something not right with the coverage when they simplify it all? And there's no gray, it's all one way. Well, life isn't like that. If it doesn't match real life, it's probably not. Something's wrong. For example, all the coverage on Trump all the time is negative. That's a distortion of the way things go in real life. There's all gray. It's all one way. Yeah, that does sound a pretty classic form of manipulation. A lot of cults do that, actually. She goes on to say, when you turn on your computer or walk past the TV, you see a newspaper headline in the grocery store. If they're all saying the same thing, the weight of if they're all saying the same thing, the weight of that convinces you that it's true. You don't question it because everyone is saying it. It is something that Laura Logan had said. Logan also said that MSM reports using anonymous or single government sources are bunk. That's not journalism, it's horseshit, she said. Demanding more accountability and responsibility for fake news begins with us. I agree. I absolutely agree. And me doing my journalism for this show, I do a lot of digging. I'm new to this, but I think I do very well with my relative level of experience. This woman, I think, is terribly brave. Because she could get hugely, she could get defamed, screwed, have her reputation destroyed by these people. And they wouldn't have an ounce of guilt over it. None whatsoever. So I think she is terribly brave. And I wouldn't be surprised if no one ever wants to employ her ever again after this. But it's obvious to me that the truth matters more to her than money. And that is infinitely more respectable. Richard Painter, former lawyer of George W. Bush, has been pushing the subversive agenda of getting Trump removed via the 25th Amendment. He is quoted as saying, I think we need to understand, though, we were in this situation, Pointer said, referring to Trump's national emergency declaration. The president is not well at all, mentally. I think he's an extreme narcissist. The thing is, the reason why he might think that is no one in politics really understands Trump. Because he's not your usual politician. Not in the slightest. I'll tell you precisely what he is. He is an entertainment class celebrity. For crying out loud, he beat up Vince McMahon at WrestleMania. He's a tabloid superstar. For crying out loud. He's used to acting controversial. He's comfortable in controversy. He thrives on it. Whereas these politicians do not. Trump acts the way he does, not because he's insane, but because when you've built a persona for television and acted that way for so long, it just kind of becomes a force of habit. It literally becomes a part of you. I, for one, can speak from experience that when you act a certain way long enough, it just becomes a habit, and it becomes very difficult to break. Like, when I was a teenager, I started using really big words and expanded my vocabulary to sound awesome and smart. And after years of doing it, it has now become a force of habit. I tend to speak in a very correct manner, otherwise for an American, because of that. My very correct, impressive English dialect, you know? So I can definitely say that if you act a certain way, it's going to become a habit. Plain and simple. He's not crazy. He's just used to behaving controversially as a habit of generating buzz. But the Infowars.com reports he has been denied what he wants, his wall. And he is having a hissy fit. He is out of control and he will not take no for an answer from Congress. This is what is stated by Congress. He is going to tear the country apart. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. He is going to do enormous damage to the Republican Party, which is going to split right down the middle over this. And we really need to keep in mind that is because the president is not well, he added. Actually, it's not unconstitutional. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says he can't build a wall. However, you know, Nancy Pelosi talking about her state of emergency would be unconstitutional because of the Second Amendment. It's obvious that the Democrats don't understand the Constitution of this country in the slightest. That's why they're always constantly skirting it, because they don't really know what it is. They don't know what's in it. They're idiots. Painter has repeatedly attacked Trump, even suggesting in 2017 on MSNBC programming that Trump is engaged in destroying democracy via a coup. The commander-in-chief is Donald Trump, Painter said, adding, there is a risk of him using that power to destroy our democracy, whether you call it a coup or anything else. It's not from the critics of Donald Trump that danger is posed. It's the fact that the man who is commander-in-chief of our military is engaged in obstruction of justice. Obstruction of what justice? Exactly. What is he obstructing? I don't understand. What is he obstructing by building a wall? Illegal immigration? I mean, come on now. And how is he doing a coup exactly? The coup is coming from the left, specifically from the former administration of Barack Obama. They're the ones doing the coup, regularly undermining Trump's administration and his authority as president. Man, this guy's, like, he's completely backwards. There is not much evidence of a deep state. However, the former administration of Barack Obama, as I previously said, has been behaving very suspiciously of late, and I think that they are the deep state. And while they may not be behind this push for 25th Amendment Declaration, I'm sure they enjoy its promotion a great deal, and even encourage it. The suspicious behavior of the former administration includes misuse of military aircraft, political tours into foreign countries, inflammatory statements undermining Trump's authority, former FBI agents spying on the president, and just general disrespect of the office of president. So there you go. Richard Painter is about as backwards as you can get. Moving on to European news, senior Polish officials have strongly asked that Israel walk back some very serious racist statements toward Polish folks. And it may come as a surprise to some, but Israeli Jews have been known to be very racist towards a variety of people of Germanic descent because of World War II. And in fact, Israel Katz has stated, Poles suckle anti-Semitism with their mother's milk. In fact, Press TV reports Katz also alleged on Sunday, the same day he was appointed as the regime's interim foreign minister, that there were many Poles who collaborated with the Nazis. This kind of racism is completely ridiculous. These people are they're living in the past. I guarantee you most of the Polish, if they did cooperate at all, most of the ones who did are probably dead by now. And sucking anti-Semitism along with mother's milk, I mean, I guess anti-Semitism is a physical object you can physically consume. Separately on Tuesday, Polish Prime Minister, let's hope I don't mess up this pronunciation, Mateusz Morawiecki, Chief of Staff, Marek Suski, said if no apology was forthcoming, relations will really take a frosty turn. A day earlier, Morawiecki had lambasted the comments as racist and unacceptable, adding that Katz was trying to insult the Poles by distorting history. True, I've never really heard of the Polish actually aiding in the Holocaust before. That's a new one. On Friday, the Israeli ambassador has summoned to Warsaw for a dressing down, after comments made by Benjamin Netanyahu, who on February 14th appeared to accuse the European country of collaborating with the Nazi Germany in carrying out the Holocaust. I'd like to see some evidence for that claim, please. However, Katz's comments followed after this event, reviving past tensions between the two countries. The V4 summit, an important European international summit, was recently cancelled. Poland stated that no Polish officials would be attending due to having a deal with Israel's vehement statements. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that the Israeli government are the real Nazis, ironically enough, even though they're being, them being Jews. Because they're very racist. And there's a lot of little pockets of anti-white racism popping up all over the world, primarily aimed at Germanic and British groups. So yeah, I mean, anti-white racism is real. Like, I don't think most people of color realize what it's like to be a white person in 2019. Having to hear all this crap being spewed at you constantly. And I already said how a while back when I reported on that declaration from South Africa, by the dude screaming about killing white people. I already told you that, like, there was like a huge pit in my stomach when I was listening to that. Because you know what? Like, I think it was sort of a startling realization that in their place, they would treat me no different. That is, you know, if I was in the place of a white South African farmer, they would treat me no different. There are places in this world that hate white people so damn much that it's kind of scary to think about. And I don't think people of color realize, as far as race issues go, just how good they got it these days. Because they're supported by things like hate crime protections and affirmative action. You guys got it easy as far as legality. And your lives really aren't threatened daily. So, for our final story under science and health news, Dr. Martin L. Pall, a professor emeritus of biochemistry and basic medical sciences at Washington State University, has stated that 5G networks are stupid and dangerous idea. I should have included an in there, pardon. Putting in tens of millions of 5G antenna without a single biological test of safety has got to be about the stupidest idea anyone has had in the history of the world, is what he said for himself concerning such claims. Well, how do you know they didn't test? Are you directly involved with the company? Are you privy to that information? CollectiveEvolution.com reports that report goes through a lot of science, which only adds to all of the science that's already available regarding the harmful effects of 5G technology. If you're looking for more information, I often point people toward the Environmental Health Trust because it's a great resource that gives you access to more science, says the reporter for Collective Evolution. According to him, with regards to wireless radiation in general, we have created something that is harming us, and it is getting out of control. Before Edison's light bulb, there was very little electromagnetic radiation in our environment. The levels today are very many times higher than natural background levels, and are growing rapidly because of all the new devices that emit this radiation. Putting it bluntly, they are damaging the living cells in our bodies and killing many of us prematurely. This seems dubious at a time when we tend to live far longer than we used to. In fact, it's well-known fact in 1850, the life expectancy was 38 to 48 years old, whereas now that has increased to 78 years old. So this claim seems very doubtful. But he continues to claim that these technologies are being sold without passing mandatory health tests. And while that may be true, I fail to see how his claims meet reality. In a lecture, he went on to say it's alarming that some people have been made to believe that this is pseudoscience. Not only is this surprising, but it's also very concerning. During the Health and Buildings Roundtable sponsored by the NIH and co-organized by the US CDC and several other organizations, Dr. Martin Pall from Washington State University, or WSU, concluded that the 5G rollout is absolutely insane. In this short presentation, Dr. Pall confirmed that the current 2G, 3G, 4G radiation the population is exposed to has been scientifically linked to lowered fertility, insomnia, fatigue, depression, anxiety, major changes in brain structure in animals, cellular DNA damage, oxidative stress, hormonal disruption, cancer, and much more. Dr. Pall briefly explained the mechanisms of how the electrosmog emitted by our cell phones, Wi-Fi routers, cell phone antennas, and other wireless technologies affect human cells. Electrosmog. It's pseudoscience because research doesn't support it, except for conveniently his. I saw no corroboration with him except for that article from CollectiveEvolution.com. For all I know, he could probably own the damn place. Bottom line, this is pseudoscience. Now, here's my explanation for his claims. Infertility? Well, the funny thing about it is people used to have more kids, people now used to have less kids because people back then used to have more kids because they had less to do. Fewer activities, fewer distractions, fewer video games, movies, TV, less to do. So how did they curb boredom? They just had sex. Lots and lots of sex. Cancer? Caused by malfunctioning stem cells. which are the result of mutation brought about by certain amino acids. Insomnia and fatigue. Artificial light is throwing off our brain's melatonin-serotonin sleep cycle. Depression and anxiety. Modern people are too busy and always working. In short, all of his claims can be easily explained away by a common rube like me. Bottom line, in my opinion, this man is a victim of overthink. He finds minor risks from too much technology and overcomplicates a very small issue. In fact, I find him very much akin to that guy I reported on a while back who sued his neighbor for using her Wi-Fi box, claiming that he basically was a hypochondriac, claiming that electron and Wi-Fi signals were damaging him in some way. The symptoms were a creation of his own imagination. If you believe in something hard enough, your mind makes it real. That is a psychological fact. As to the changes in brain structure in animals, well, who knows, maybe that's proof of evolution. Until someone corroborates his data, don't you even dare to believe it. Oxidative stress, that can just be caused by poor diet. Hormonal disruption, mammalian hormones from other animals in our food. Bottom line is, everything this guy says can be explained away very easily, and does nothing to confirm his claims. Nothing at all. Anyway, that's it for the Unglobalist today, folks. Have yourselves a good day.